morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our virtual Walk with the Future Doc, and welcome to those in person as well in Morgantown. We're excited to start walking together again this fall. My name's Lauren, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at WVU. So just going to take a couple minutes to give everyone a quick overview of what to expect as we walk together virtually. So today we have Cathy Shaw joining us to speak about the topic of falling in love with a healthier you, 5 simple ways to change your diet. And then as we walk together virtually or in person, we'll open up the conversation for questions that anyone might have. So I just want to mention we have a YouTube page that is WVU Walk with the Future Doc, and we have previous recordings of other walks posted up there. And we also have a Facebook page that's the same name, WVU Walk with the Future Doc. And the Facebook page is the best place to look for updates about our future walks and when they'll be happening. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, whether it's virtually or in person. So now I'd like to introduce everyone to Cathy Shaw, who is a clinical dietitian with WVU Medicine's Medical Weight Management Clinic in Morgantown. So we're really excited to have her speaking about the topic of falling in love with a healthier you, 5 simple ways to change your diet. So I will let her begin.
Okay, am I good? Oh gosh, I hear reverb. All right, so is it right here? Yes. We're really excited to be in person today, right? I got a whole bunch of people behind me. So we're here today to talk a little bit about easy ways to change your eating patterns for the better. How many of you have tried to change your eating habits? Yeah, okay. Is it easy? No, it's super, super hard, right? Our eating patterns are influenced by all kinds of stuff, right? It's not just about our preferences, of course that's important, but it's also about things like our culture, our religion, our family traditions, our environment, right? Our environment kind of dictates what we choose to eat and what our preferences are. And that doesn't even include the things that are going on inside our body, like our physiology and our psychological issues, right? So these things are really tough to do. And what we do know is that when we are wanting to change something, it's a lot easier to do if we do it in little tiny steps, right? You hear us talk about baby steps all the time, which sounds kind of cliche, but we find that when we start with small things that we can build on, they're more sustainable. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is just kind of 5 easy ways to change your diet for the better. I could probably come up with 20 easy ways to do that, just because that's what I do every day. But I'm going to start with my top 5, and then I want everybody else to kind of chime in later on and say, okay, this is what I find easiest, because my easy is not necessarily your easy, okay? So I'm going to start with my number 1, and anybody who's ever walked with me before could probably guess my number 1, right? The first thing I would tell you to do is add 1 serving of vegetables a day, or 1 serving of fruit a day, or both, okay? Fruits and vegetables are like the powerhouse mainstay of our diet. It's just loaded with vitamins and minerals, fiber and fluid, things that we need for healthy nutrition. So if you can just add 1, just 1, that's all I ask people to do. Choose a variety of colors. You know, we have fruits and vegetables that are in a huge, we call it a rainbow. That's something else that's kind of cliche, but it's true. When we think of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, you know, all these things give us different nutrients. So it's important to choose different colors. How are you going to do this really easy? You know, add salsa to your eggs or your chicken. Add fruit salsa to your fish. Throw frozen fruit into a smoothie. Chop up vegetables to put in your spaghetti sauce that you wouldn't normally do, okay? Little easy ways. Throw a handful of spinach and a slice of tomato on your wrap instead of just having meat and cheese in there. So there's just really simple ways to do that on a daily basis. Number 2, drink water, okay? Add 1 glass of water to your day. So if you're normally used to drinking soda, sweet tea, lemonade, even sports drinks, substitute one of those with water. If you don't like the taste of water, which a lot of people don't, add fruit. Slice up lemons, limes, oranges, put them in your glass with your water. It helps to infuse and flavor your water and give it a little bit of flavor rather than being very plain. So it makes it easier to drink. My number 3 is to trade out 1 serving of animal-based protein and substitute a plant-based protein. So we always hear about Meatless Monday, right? So take 1 meal a week, and instead of having an animal-based protein like red meat or even fish or chicken or turkey or whatever, substitute a plant-based protein. Beans, lentils, chickpeas, black-eyed peas, tofu. Who likes tofu? You know, like tofu? Oh, look at all the hands. That's great. Tempeh, nuts, seeds. All of these plant-based proteins have a lot of fiber, potassium, phosphorus, iron, all of these nutrients with no saturated fat, right? And nuts and seeds have really high amounts of those really heart-healthy unsaturated fats. So they're a great way to get different nutrients in with your protein. These plant-based proteins also have been shown to help us decrease the risk of cardiovascular disease, right? Help us manage blood sugars because they're so high in fiber, and help us manage our weight. Protein and fiber are your most really satiating nutrients. So these are great sources of those things. They help keep us full and satisfied. Great addition to your week. My number 4 is replace 1 meal of takeout or restaurant food with 1 meal, simple meal that you prepare in your own kitchen, okay? You're always gonna get more calories, saturated fat, sodium, sugar, refined carbohydrates when you eat out. You're just always, it's just happens that way. So anytime you substitute a simple meal that you can cook at home, it's very basic, you know, chicken, vegetables, brown rice, it's very simple. Anytime you substitute that, you're gonna have a better nutrient profile. We have someone else joining us, yay. So start this week by taking 1 meal and making it at home. So if you go through the drive-through for breakfast every day, pick 1 day that you're gonna bring a grab and go from home. You know, Greek yogurt and a bag of nuts, something. If you're normally eating out for lunch, pack one day. If you're normally eating out for dinner, take 1 day and throw a healthy meal in the crock pot. Do you know how nice it is to come home and smell dinner already done? You know, that's the best feeling ever. So, you know, just try that this week. And then my last one is one that I see all the time. So I really wanted to throw this one in there. Number 5 is, if you are a meal skipper, stop it, okay? Don't skip meals. If you're hungry, eat, okay? Don't try to push off hunger until you're so hungry that you can't control yourself and make healthy decisions, all right? I have a lot of folks who go all day without eating. And what happens is they start snacking, they get home, they're ravenously hungry, and that's all they want to do for the rest of the evening is eat. That's the wrong time to be fueling our body, right? Right before we go to bed. We want to fuel our body during the day for activity, not fuel our body for sleep. So if you're a breakfast skipper, I have a lot of people who are, a lot of people who don't like to eat breakfast or don't even feel good in the morning to eat breakfast. That's okay. Wait a couple hours, then have breakfast. You know, if it's 10 a.m. or 6 a.m., I don't care. But when you're hungry, start eating, okay? Try grab and go things in the morning. I know you guys are busy, right? Running the classes. You really have to kind of think about that the night before. But, you know, fruit and cheese, boil some hard-boiled eggs, throw some whole grain crackers in a bag, Greek yogurt and a sprinkle of nuts. I mentioned that before. You know, try to do that once or twice a week. If you're not ever eating breakfast, add 1 in a week. If you skip both meals, pick 1 meal to add back in, okay? I can guarantee you that if you are eating one meal a day, you're not meeting your nutritional requirements. How are you supposed to get all your vitamins and minerals in from food in one meal, right? So choose whole foods, spread it out so you're not eating all in the evening. I can think of about 10 more different things, but I want to start hearing from you guys. So those are my top 5. I want to hear what everybody else's top at least 1 or 2 is. So let's take it from there.
Yeah. So do I have the microphone?
Yep.
All right, thanks so much, Cathy, for leading our walk today. This is our first hybrid walk, so we're really excited. We got a lot of med students here. Everybody wave to the camera that Meg has. And so good morning to our virtual walkers too. We have a faithful group of walkers that usually come just about every walk that we have. So we'll open it up to questions. I'll be moderating the chat. So if you're virtual, we'll ask that you send your question in the chat. And we also have a lot of med students here who have some great questions to ask. So for the med students, before you ask your question, if you wouldn't mind just saying your first name and then what year in med school you are. So yeah, anybody want to start us off with a question? Question for anything.
Oh, okay. Is this good? Here? Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Taylor Rice. I'm a first-year med student. I personally have a question about I don't know if you can answer this, how do you modify your diet if you find yourself having a lot of heartburn or acid reflux? Because I unfortunately have that. So that's my question.
I love this. We're passing the mic around. So reflux is a big issue and can be modified both with diet and, of course, lifestyle changes, positioning, things like that. Yeah. So there's a lot of different recommendations. I always encourage people to kind of keep a symptom diary. If there's foods that you find trigger that, then reduce them, obviously. But a lot of it has to do with meal timing and also positioning. So not eating 3 hours before you go to bed. Okay.
I was doing 2 hours.
Yeah, well, if that's not working, try to extend it a little bit. Also propping the head of your bed up a little bit so you're elevated. And fat takes a really long time, well, not really long time, but longer to digest than other nutrients. So if you eat a big greasy meal, it's probably not gonna do real well with reflux. So just kind of be careful about that. Some people complain about spicy foods and things like that, but that varies from person to person. So you just have to kind of figure out what triggers you. Does that help?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Next, any more? Yes.
Yeah.
Are we good? So the question is can we overconsume fruit? And it has to do with the sugar content of fruit. Yeah. So of course, sugar content of fruit is from fructose. It's a very simple sugar. And I think I would have to say, number one, let's look at the statistics because we barely eat 1 serving of fruit a day, most people. So generally I'm encouraging much more than that. But you're right, it is a simple carbohydrate, and we probably, depending on your medical history, it varies. So you could be eating a lot of fruit and getting a lot of extra carbohydrate. And if you have things like prediabetes or diabetes, that's not such a good thing. And we have to moderate that and combine that with other foods to help reduce that glucose response and that insulin response when we eat it. But in general, I don't think many people are going to overconsume fruit.
I
have a follow-up question from that in the chat.
Yeah.
The question is, do smoothies count as like a good source of fruit?
Okay, so the question is also, do smoothies count as a good source of fruit? If you're making them yourself, yes, they can be a great source of fruit because you can put in unsweetened frozen fruit or fresh fruit, whatever you want, into that smoothie, and that can definitely count as your serving. Where I would really be careful is if you're getting smoothies out, right? If you're going to a smoothie bar, 9 times out of 10, there's a lot of added sugar, yes, and a lot of juice that they're using. So great way to combat that is if you make it at home, use things like plain Greek yogurt, dairy milk, or if you like almond milk, something like that, and combine that with unsweetened fruit so that you're not getting that big sugar load that you're getting from whatever smoothie bar is putting agave and honey and juice in your smoothie.
I have a follow-up question on that follow-up question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So speaking of like, you know how people will get a juicer and they start juicing things, like even if they juice it on their own, is that still good for you? Because it's technically you're not getting all the fiber that a smoothie, like, I don't know. It's some people debate this, but I don't know how you feel about smoothie versus like juicing.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, some people juice and they actually put the whole fruit in and get the fiber and things like that in it. They chop it up in there. But if you're just juicing something and not getting all the pulp involved, you're not getting all the fiber that's available in those fruits and vegetables. It can be, a healthy thing if you want it to be. But what I find is people kind of take that to the extreme, and they juice everything, like all 3 meals a day. And that's not what you want. If you want that as a snack or a treat, great, but don't base your whole diet around it, for sure. Okay.
What's the proper daily serving of nuts and seeds, especially when you're trying to lose weight?
Okay, so the question is, what's the proper daily serving of nuts and seeds if you're trying to lose weight? Well, there's probably not a recommendation of certain number of servings, but if you add 1 serving of nuts to your day for a snack or something like that, a 1/4 cup of nuts or seeds is equal to a serving. It is a little higher in calories when you think about weight loss, maybe 200 calories in a 1/4 cup of nuts, but you're also getting a lot of protein, heart healthy fat, and fiber too. So it's a good way to add a snack in to bridge between meals. And it can be really beneficial to kind of fill you up until you're ready to eat the next meal. If you prefer to use it with a meal, sprinkle nuts on your salad or sprinkle seeds on your salad or something like that to give you your extra protein and fiber. There's not like a daily recommendation.
Any nuts to avoid?
Any nuts to avoid? I would say no, unless you're allergic, of course, right? Is that all that's in the chat?
There's one more, but anybody else?
Anybody else want to chime in?
I'll have a question off of that kind of.
Okay.
This is Jess. I'm a 4th year medical student. What is your go-to snack if you just need like something quick?
Something quick. Okay. So my go-to snack is generally a cup of pre-made like Greek yogurt, like either plain or the 000 made with stevia, whatever. And either fruit or nuts to throw in it. Protein and carbs, right? Combined together. Anybody else? Alrighty.
My name is Jade. I'm a 1st year medical student. My question is, what do you recommend for someone who loves desserts?
Someone who loves dessert. We're talking about dessert now. I guess it would depend on what kind of dessert you really like, right? So if you are a person who likes things that are really sweet and fatty, right? Then I would go for something that has both of those components. So fruit and peanut butter, so like apple and peanut butter or bananas with peanut butter and a little honey on top, something like that. If you're just a sugar person, which there's a lot of those, you can find substitutes for things like chocolate. That goes in the other category. But if you like things that are sugary, fruit is a really good substitute. If you put like a little bit of whipped cream or Cool Whip on top, super light, but still nutritious. And then chocolate is always the big one I get. Like, what do I substitute for chocolate? And if you try to do a little bit more dark chocolate, it almost has this effect where it satisfies that chocolate need, but it's kind of bitter. So you don't tend to overeat it. You know what I mean? Because you don't have that super like smooth sweetness that you have from milk chocolate. It's just a little bit different, and it might calm things down a little bit, and you won't have to eat as much.
I also feel like once I switch to dark chocolate, I don't crave like this,
Right.
like the milk anymore. It's like too. Like,
Yeah.
It's not strong enough, like it's bitter enough, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big switch, but it kind of tends to tamp down that craving to keep eating, right? I actually like a little few dark chocolate chips on Greek yogurt with raspberries. So that's a good dessert.
How do you make sure someone is getting appropriate nutrients that's doing a 16, 18, 20, 40 fasting?
Ooh, a 24 fasting? Wow. Okay. So the question is, how do you make sure someone is getting appropriate nutrients that is doing a 16, 8, or 24 fasting? So what they're talking about here is intermittent fasting. So a 16, 8, that means you're fasting for 16 hours and eating in an 8-hour window. That's not so bad because you can get 3 meals a day in 8 hours. I mean, that's not a problem. And I think as long as people are focusing on those nutrient-rich foods, we look at, you know, like the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate, and we've got our protein, our whole grains, our fruits and vegetables, our dairy, and you know, healthy oils. We can do that in 3 times a day. But a 20-hour fast with 4 hours of eating window, that's going to be really, really hard, and I don't even recommend that. You're fasting a really long time, and 4 hours is enough for maybe a meal and a snack. So to get a really enough nutrients in 1 meal a day is going to be really, really tough, especially to do with whole foods. Now, if you're going to drink supplements to go along with that, that might be possible. But that would be something that I would have to sit down with a person and really take a look at their diet and see what's going on and make some recommendations to see how we could boost their nutrition in that 4-hour window. Like I said, that's not something I would ever recommend usually for my patients, but the 16-8 we do a lot. We have people who want to explore that. So, you know, that we can do. We can definitely, and at like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., eat breakfast at 10, lunch at 2, dinner at 6, you're good.
That was all the questions from the chat.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
So now it's on.
Okay, it's on now. All right, sorry about that. So my question is, so obviously if you were to eat only 200 calories a day, you would lose a lot of weight, but you wouldn't get enough vitamins and minerals, and so it would be very bad for you long term. So I guess my question is, how can you balance restricting your calories to lose weight while at the same time making sure that you get enough vitamins and minerals?
Okay, so with that question, I would say we can definitely do that, okay? Because we don't have to restrict calories to 200 calories a day, right? So when we think about how we estimate calorie needs, you know, we look at a person's height, weight, gender, age, and if we're lucky enough, if we have equipment to do that, you know, like the bod pod or indirect calorimetry, then we can actually assess what their resting energy expenditure is. And the larger the person, the larger the REE, right, in general. So I may have somebody who weighs, say, 300 pounds, and really they can still eat, say, 2,000 calories a day and lose weight very nicely and get all of their nutrient needs in. So I think a lot of times we have to address the question of, you know, when people come to us and say, well, I can only eat 1,200 calories, right? No. You can eat more than that and still lose weight. And it becomes much easier then to meet their nutrient needs and much more sustainable because they can actually eat normally with their family and friends and things like that. So it takes those little changes, right, that we were talking about earlier, and makes it much more reasonable. So yeah, definitely don't need to restrict calories that far. And we find the further we restrict calories, the more difficult it is for people and the more unsustainable it is for people. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, so my name is Riley. I'm a MS1. So kind of going off of that, whenever you have somebody come in that is trying to lose weight, are there any type of like blanket recommendations that you give them? Like, what's the first thing that you say? It's like, oh, like for me, I would think, oh, do you drink soda? Like, because that's something you can just immediately cut out, right? But are there any other things that you just automatically recommend?
I do. Because what I see, I see a lot of commonalities in the folks that we see, and even in ourselves, to be quite honest. They don't eat fruits and vegetables. Okay, we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. So one thing that I blanketly say to most people who don't have any other medical issues that I need to address is, I don't care how many vegetables you eat in one day. Eat all the vegetables, okay? Because they're only going to benefit you, and they're going to be high in nutrition and low in calories. So let's put them on your plate. Drink water, just like we were talking about earlier. If you drink, like you said, if you're drinking soda, let's start cutting that back because it's empty calories that we really don't need. There's a question, how much water should you drink a day? That's a very interesting question, actually.
Sorry, I didn't mean to tangent. I thought it
No,
was so long.
but no, it does go along because many people will drink. I use my mom as an example. She drinks like no water. Okay. She drinks diet iced tea all day, and it's usually like no more than 24 ounces. I don't think she hardly drinks anything. So, when we're young, we have a sense of thirst. So drink when you're thirsty. We hear that recommendation of 64 ounces of water a day. We're not really quite sure where the research on that came from, but it's a good target. So as we get older, then our thirst sensation diminishes. And then we have to really concentrate a little bit more on making sure people are hydrated throughout the day. But when I, talk to everyday folks or, even athletes, pay attention to your thirst, replace fluids when you're hot or when you're working out. And also, make sure that you're hydrating throughout the day, not just all at one time. Like, it's been really hard working with a mask on all day and trying to stay hydrated. And you come home and you want to drink like 3 gallons of water because you're so thirsty. It doesn't do us as well to do that. So, but yeah, that is another recommendation, just drink more water.
Hi, I'm Meg. I'm a third-year medical student. My question is, do you have any examples of ways like traditional meals that you make healthier in a certain way? Like, I really like zucchini noodles, obviously. And then my mom and I think she's on the call, we like doing the chickpea pasta too, or like the lentil pasta. So, and she made her own sauce the other day. So yeah, so do you have any examples of things you do?
I think we just, in my house, naturally do a lot. My husband has celiac disease, so we have to do a lot of gluten-free, and you mentioned chickpea pasta, which is amazing. We have found that that's been the best gluten-free pasta. I would say tacos too. Tacos are great, right? Everybody loves tacos. Tacos can be made really healthy, right? You can do the small, like whole grain corn tortillas. You can substitute ground turkey or even ground plant-based protein, like the soy crumbles. And use lots of vegetables. We add onions and peppers and tomatoes to ours, and sometimes I'll drain and rinse a can of black beans and throw them in with our meat so that we kind of expand that volume that we're cooking, but actually make it healthier by adding the beans. So there's a lot of things you can do like that. Trying to think of any other ones that we do.
I know. Like Megan usually talks about like
Oh.
she make lentil sloppy joes.
Oh, she does all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, Tria, you're like the master of substituting things.
I love substituting things. You all laugh at me, but mine is the
Oh wait,
cauliflower
I think
stuff.
Dr. Haggerty's talking. It's so fun. We can't tell because we're not on there.
Oh, Dr. Haggerty, did you have something to say?
I was just saying I love substituting. They laugh at me, but I do all the cauliflower substitutions.
She does.
All right, who has a question?
I can ask one. So mine is back to the soda thing. Oh, sorry, I'm hearing my own echo. So I know that's a problem for a lot of people. If somebody is really struggling with that and they're still like they've cut back, but they're like, I need that one thing of the day. Do you have any other beverages that might be like a little better than soda, but still maybe fulfills their cravings?
Yeah, that's a tough one because we do. I mean, and I'm going to preface this with some people are just not ready to change.
Yeah.
And they're just not going to. And that's okay. And we can work with that. But I would say that, you know, the first route we go is, okay, if you have to have that taste and you have to have that bubbly, have you tried diet soda?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You know, if they like the diet soda, awesome. If they can switch to like something like Crystal Light or something like that, that gives them that flavor, but not necessarily all the sugar, then that's a good substitute too. But a lot of people, you know, they crave that like Coke or Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
So we usually go the diet route first to see if that'll help.
Maybe even like going the diet route to just wean their way, and then we can
Exactly.
stepwise.
Exactly. So, you know, okay, let's switch to diet for one of those sodas you're having a day.
Yeah.
And then see how that goes. And then we kind of do that in a very small steps, right?
Yeah.
Baby steps.
I have like so many questions
Good.
for you.
I
I'm so
love this.
sorry.
This is awesome.
I hope I didn't turn this off. Can you hear me?
No, it's good.
Okay.
Taylor, since we're on the topic of coffee, or sorry,
for it.
drinks, but I have a question when you talk about coffee. So we have a question in the chat since we're on the topic of drinks. Any downsides to drinking coffee? Mixing maybe decaf with calf. What's your thoughts on that?
Anybody who knows me knows I love coffee. So coffee actually has antioxidants in it. It's wonderful. But what I would say is you have to watch how much you drink of it, right? If you're drinking a pot of coffee a day, it's probably too much. If you're jittery after you drink coffee, cut back. Try half calf if you want to. The big thing about coffee though is the stuff you're putting in your coffee, right? So I don't worry so much about the black coffee, right? Because we're all used to that. Make sure you're drinking water throughout the day. Coffee is still water, it's still hydrating you, but not if you're drinking a pot or two. Okay. Yeah. So the big problem with coffee usually is the sweetened creamer that we're putting in there. When we're using half creamer and just a little bit of coffee, that becomes more of the issue, I think. Not really a downside to coffee by itself. Right? It's just delicious. That's all.
That's true. Yeah. But when you actually look at the research, caffeine adaptation has no benefit. It's just
Correct.
withdrawing.
Right.
It's reversing your withdrawal when you consume it. It doesn't actually increase your wakefulness or your alertness.
Right. And you get, you develop a tolerance.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. My husband can drink coffee at 10 o'clock at night and not bother him at all. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So, sorry. How do you say to people who deal with all or nothing thinking, like, I ate this piece of candy, might as well eat the rest of the bag. I missed this day of my diet. I'm not going to start until next month or next year. Yeah.
Yep. That is such a great question and such something that we see all the time. And I can honestly say that's a process, right? Because that's a psychological thing that they've developed, a relationship with food that is really hard to crack. So we talk a lot about, you know, is that one day the end of the world? You know, no, and they know it's not, but they have this routine going where that's the way they think for a lot of things, not just about food. You know, it could be about work too. It could be about their family. So kind of digging into the psychology of that and figuring out what's going to help. a lot of people have just really like poor relationships with food. I know that's kind of a weird term, but they feel like a failure if they do one thing wrong, and they're not a failure. We all do things that are wrong every single day, and it's hard to grasp that when you have that mentality. So that's a lot of work and several sessions of trying to deal with that, for sure.
Could I ask a related question?
Yes, absolutely.
So my question is, do you believe in cheat days? Because on the one hand, you know, it gives you something to look forward to. If you work hard all week, having a good diet all week, and then you pig out on Sunday or whatever, it gives you something to look forward to, and it adds some joy in your life. But on the other hand, could that potentially be furthering, or I guess maintaining, someone's addiction to junk food or processed food?
There are so many things about that question. Okay, so number one, I want to draw attention to some of the language you've used, right? Cheat day. Do you cheat on your spouse? Right? No. So we don't cheat on our diet because we shouldn't be dieting, right? We should be eating healthfully as a lifestyle, so we don't have to cheat, right? But yes, if you find you're eating good, which I hate good and bad too, right? You're eating good for say Monday through Friday, and then the weekend you just like blow it, right? You're gonna undo everything you did during the week if you're talking about weight management, right? So I encourage people not to think of it as cheating or this is joyful and this is not, right? So those are some of the language that I picked out of there.
Yep.
So we don't want to say eating cheesecake is joyful, but eating delicious tacos is not, right? So we have to kind of reframe all of that and encourage people to celebrate when it's appropriate, right? If we're gonna have a birthday, we want to have cake. Who doesn't want to have cake? You know, when we're having a special occasion or a religious celebration, you know, we want to live those things. So we, you know, Judy and I have an 80-20 rule. So Judy's the dietitian over in family medicine, right? So we have an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, we're cruising along, doing our healthy thing. And then 20% of the time is that, hey, it's Christmas. Yeah, I'm gonna have some cookies today. Yay, Thanksgiving, I'm gonna have peace pie. You know, those type of things that bring you joy in that sense, in that celebratory sense. And it's okay to do those things. So I don't consider it cheating, right? It's just part of life.
It's a special occasion.
Yeah, it's a special occasion, and that's part of life, right? We can't eliminate that for sure. Good question.
In the chat, but have you encountered patients that have you encountered patients that are trying to lose like a significant amount of weight and they kind of hit a plateau and they're kind of like dieting and exercise and weight loss? Like how do you suggest they change up their diet or their eating habits, or how do you go about that?
Well, luckily, I work with an exceptional team of professionals, including Tria Haggerty, who's on this call. So I would say, number one, we do look at those things, you know, maybe changing up your exercise routine, adding some strength training, changing up your cardio workout, maybe, you know, just kind of shaking things up a bit. Diet changes, you know, I look at, are you getting enough protein? You know, are you satisfied when you're eating? Are you not eating enough to sustain the ridiculous exercise apparently that you're doing right now? So I look at those things. And then what's great about having a medical team is we can also look to see if it's appropriate to add in some of those medications that have been approved for weight management to get people over that hump and to kind of give them that little extra boost to get through that and start losing again. So that's where my team comes in, and they're just amazing at doing those things. So, and there's so many available now that there's a lot of different avenues that we can take to help people depending on what their needs actually are. Yes.
What do I hit?
Nothing.
you're
Don't
good.
hit anything.
Okay. So back to the 80-20 rule you're talking about. How do you feel about that, like with diet, like daily diet?
Daily diet? Yeah. I mean, and that's what we're talking about on average, right? So, you know,
I guess I'm like, what what I mean is in that 20%, are you still like saying that you should still do like healthier options with your 20% that you eat what you want?
Sure. I mean, and in the long run, yes. So when you're looking at a typical day, you know, maybe I don't choose dessert today, but I have the bowl of yogurt with raspberries and a few chocolate chips, you know, or something like that. But when it comes to like the week, you know, maybe you have a standing date night with your husband or your significant other. And you know that that night is your special night and this is where we go to eat and this is what I'm going to eat. And that fits in very nicely with everything else that you're doing, you know?
One last question. Any good creamers you can recommend?
Creamers? Okay, so the question was about like coffee creamers, right? Okay, so coffee creamers. It depends on whether you want flavored or unflavored. So flavored coffee creamers, the number one thing I would do is if you're kind of into the whole flavored Coffee Mate, International Delights, things like that, I would opt for the sugar-free version of those, just to kind of cut back on the sugar. Cut back on the amount in your coffee, and that would be better. I personally do plain creamer, so I do what's called a fat-free half and half. I think Land O'Lakes has some, Kroger's makes it too. Several years ago, the Center for Science and the Public Interest made that one of their best bites, and I actually really like it, and I even substitute it in recipes. So it gives me a little less calories in my coffee, but still that nice creamy taste. The other thing you can do too, and I just did a little video on this not too long ago, was to make coffee at home. You know how we go to Starbucks and we get all like the flavored lattes and things. So you can do that with like regular half and half or fat-free half and half. You can use the sugar-free flavored syrups that they make and make it kind of fancy. But I think the big thing is just cutting out the added sugars that are in those creamers. Okay.
All right, so we're finishing up our walk for today. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. In person, we had an awesome crowd, and then virtually, I saw a lot of like familiar names on the meeting list. So that's awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're virtual, if you wouldn't mind right now, where you're walking from, we just love to see how far this program reaches. Now, as you're doing that, I'm going to have Cathy just kind of give us like an overview, like a quick couple lines of what people should have taken out of your talk today.
Today? Yeah. Okay. Number one, eat your fruits and vegetables. Number two, drink your water, right? Number three, make more meals at home because they're going to be better for you, and realize that you don't have to be perfect all the time, right? 80-20, right? So I think that's a big takeaway, is that we're not all perfect, and you can make those little changes to your diet to make things better, and eventually they snowball and everything changes. So good luck with that.
All right, so thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for joining us virtually. Our next walk is going to be in 2 weeks. We will be with Dr. Labus, and so it's WVU game day. So we hope to see you there in the morning. Game time or kickoffs at 5, but we're going to walk at 9. So I hope you're up with us. So 2 weeks, and we hope to have a great crowd of medical students here too, asking great questions. Thanks for the questions today. Everybody have a great Saturday. Thanks for getting your steps in today, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.